Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
In each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Justin Nordell. He is the executive director of the Philadelphia Folksong Society, presenters of the oldest continuously run outdoor music festival in North America, the Philadelphia Folk Festival. Previously, he worked as an ADR director and scriptwriter for Funimation Entertainment, a director at the Philadelphia Film Festival, written for Philadelphia Magazine and We Live Entertainment, and even managed a Planned Parenthood. Oh my God, there's so many things. Welcome to the show, Justin.
It is so good to be here.
It's so excited to talk with you finally. And I have a question. Do you live in Philadelphia?
I do. I'm currently rather culturally promiscuous in the city of Philadelphia.
Hey, I love that.
Where in Philly do you live?
So that answer has changed recently. I bought a house during the pandemic.
Oh my God, wow.
My fiance. We bought in the Point Breeze section of Philadelphia, so South Philadelphia.
Oh, cool. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
For the last few years, I lived in the Italian market, which is exactly like in Rocky. There are just the fruit stands out front and everyone's yelling at each other, and you can get like enough asparagus to last you a month for $2. It is a magical place.
Love it.
I love Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a magical place. Maybe it's I don't live there and I just love going there, but it's an amazing city.
Well, the nice thing about Philadelphia is that you can very quickly get down to D.C., you can get up to New York, and Philadelphia itself is just a little bit more manageable and affordable than those two. So it's definitely been a great place to set up shop.
Okay, so can you take us back to the beginning? How did you get introduced to horror?
I was first introduced to horror via a stuffed animal. My maternal grandmother was a bit of a Maxxinista, so she would frequent TJ Maxx. And when I was 2 years old, she saw the cutest brown and white stuffed animal and brought it home to me and gave me my very first Gizmo the Mogwai. And I had a Gizmo stuffed animal at the age of 2, not knowing anything else about it, but it was my favorite thing in the world. Gizmo came with me to the Smithsonian. Gizmo came with me to see Cats the musical. Gizmo got put in the mail a lot because I'd leave him places. But Gizmo was my favoriteest thing in the universe. I still have it to this day. And when I received this amazing little critter, my parents were like, well, what is this? And then they looked, oh, it's a PG movie. Great. So I was 2 and watched Gremlins for the first time. And my mother was horrified, like, we should turn this off, so on and so forth. But I was 2 inches from the screen and giggling with delight. So I think she was worried that she may have a special child, which little did she know she really did. But I was just absolutely obsessed with Gremlins. And then when Gremlins 2 came out, I had my first exposure to camp, and just absolutely loved Gremlins 2. And I was absolutely somebody that just watched and devoured so much media as a child.
Gremlins 2 is so good.
Gremlins 2 is great, and it's
Better
kind
than
of,
the first one.
Absolutely, and it's because of the just camp elements that they fully lean into. Camp horror is something that I watched a lot of when I was younger and didn't even know or realize or think what it was. It was just I kept gravitating towards it. My parents divorced when I was 8, and my father would take us for the weekends. And so when I would have my dad weekends, which were once or twice a month, he would take us to the video store. And so I would go in and go to the VHS section and go to the horror area, and I was a big old cover slut. If you had something wonderful on the cover, it was coming home with me. House with a disembodied hand, absolutely loved it.
Ding Dong, You're Dead.
Ding Dong, You're Dead. I mean, it was, if you had a nice eye-catching cover, it was coming home. But then as I got into my, double digits, like 10, I decided that I really should start to go through horror. So I started renting in alphabetical order. 976 Evil came home first.
Oh my
and if
God.
you put a horror movie out in the 80s, early 90s that started with an A, B, C, D, or E, I have most likely seen it. And I absolutely just loved and devoured so many films during that time. I also had an aunt who worked for HBO and cable companies, and she gave me individual Betamax tapes of Fraggle Rock that I got to watch all of the episodes of Fraggles as a kid, and I had stuffed Fraggles. And in fact, my first pet, I named him Wembley, and after my favorite Fraggle. And we would watch all of the Jim Henson oeuvre, everything from The Storyteller, if you remember the HBO series The Storyteller, where they would do all of the really great Greek myths and all of these wonderful folk tales from around the world. And they all had a very, very kind of dark or horror lean and lens to them. And I loved them growing up. Of course, Labyrinth, of course, Dark Crystal, and just so many other things. And then my grandmother, the one that is the Maxinista that gave me Gizmo, she loved her murder mysteries. She was reading Sue Grafton. A is for alibi, B is for boys, C is for cocksuckers, whatever it was. She was just going through, if I haven't announced yet, ladies and gentlemen, I am a homosexual. And she would be reading all of these movies, all of these murder mystery books, and she had one author she loved, Rita Mae Brown. Now, Rita Mae Brown did the Cat Who books, which was like the cat who killed the canary, the cat who, went outside. And it was about this single woman and her corgi and her cat that solved mysteries. But Rita Mae Brown also wrote a movie called Slumber Party Massacre. And when I was still in single digits, I convinced Grandma that we should watch this murder mystery by her favorite author. Called The Slumber Party Massacre.
Sneaky. How did that go over?
Oh my God.
Well, Grandma thought that it was absolutely gratuitous, and however, it was the start of watching many, many slasher films with my grandmother. And every time we would watch them, she would, because they're just lowbrow murder mysteries. So for her, we'd watch it and she'd go, "Oh, the boyfriend did it. I remember Black Christmas. The boyfriend did it. It's the boyfriend. It's definitely the boyfriend." And then in the end, when it's no one, how? Oh, so frustrating for Grandmama.
I love her.
Wow. I love
What
her.
an amazing person. Also, when you said cover slut, I now want to make t-shirts that say cover slut and have like a cover, like a movie, like a VHS cover on it. That's so fucking funny. Because I feel like so many people that we've talked to and that I know are like that. So just like call yourself a cover slut.
Absolutely.
I was growing up, man, those covers did something. So we know what your first horror movie is, but what were some of your favorites growing up? It sounds like you kind of threw out a few. Were those like the top tier of the movies that you loved growing up?
Those were certainly favorites. I had a lot of movies that were very kind of influential in my love of horror. That aunt that worked for the cable company, she also was a huge Stephen King fan. And I was a voracious reader as a child. And so I think I was probably 6 or 7 when she gave me Night Shift for the first time and was
Boy.
read some short stories, and they're, accessible. And I remember she gave me Pet Sematary, and I did a 3rd grade book report on it. One of the many times I got sent to the principal's office for reading. I got sent to the principal's office for reading.
Oh my God.
I probably shouldn't have been reading that, but also I was a bit of a sassy child too, so it didn't help.
What? This does not track.
In 1st grade, when Mrs. Iborg passed out my copy of Brown Bear, What Do You See?, I took the book from her and said, "You've got to be kidding me. I'm reading Stuart Little." And I got sent to the principal's office, and then I had to read Stuart Little out loud to the principal, and then I got put in a special reading group, which meant I sat by myself in the corner and read whatever I wanted. Best thing that ever happened to me.
Wow.
I can't believe. I love that. You have got to be kidding me. This is not for me. This is like way below my reading level. Which fair though. Like if you can be reading Stuart Little, why would you want to read that? Like you'd be like, I want to go read actual like long books that are fun.
Right, chapter books. Like everybody remembers the first time you started actually getting to chapter books, how exciting that was.
Exactly.
So I watched a lot of horror movies. Again, I went alphabetical through, and I had one that was a particular favorite growing up called Aerobicide, which now goes by the name Killer Workout. It's available on Amazon Prime, so if you've never seen it, I do yourself a favor. I sing its praises every time I can. It is the 80s-est horror movie of all time. It is someone is killing off people that work out at this gym with a giant safety pin. That is the murder weapon. And these people are like, "Oh no, someone died. Okay, let's go work out again." It is essentially 8 workout videos with murders in between. It is camp. And I had no idea why as a child I loved this movie so much. I probably rented it when I was 9 or 10, and I rented it again and again. And then I ended up buying that copy of that VHS from the video store when they started getting rid of their collection. And I just love this movie, and I loved so many other weird and wonderful, campy 80s horror movies that now when I go back and look at them, I'm like, ooh, Hide and Go Shriek was problematic.
I mean, that's the big problem going back and watching movies from your childhood is when you're like, oh, shit, this would not fly today.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Transitioning to being to the adult, what draws you to horror now as opposed to being a kid?
When I was a kid, there were a lot of things that I think I was very logical. Like Jaws cannot get me. I am not in the water.
Relate.
Jaws is scary, but it's not fully scary. But I was vivid imagination. So the things that terrorized me as a child were more like larger concepts, and which is funny. Like Care Bears the movie 2, which I lovingly call Care Bears Go to Hell. If you haven't seen it, it is literally Care Bears battle Satan in an underground lair. It holds up, but terrified me because all of these children had all of their personalities stolen, and all of the Care Bears got trapped inside crystal chandelier. And for me, as a small child, like my eternal soul could be trapped inside of this thing. That's terrifying. And in Little Nemo Adventures in Slumberland, same thing. As a kid, like my eternal soul could go in. So as a child, I was very, very concerned about my eternal soul.
Did you grow up Catholic?
Very Jewish.
Never mind.
Yeah, no. But, you scratch a Jew, there's a Catholic underneath. I mean, there's definitely a lot of the same similarities. Catholicism just had a sequel. We were all about that Old Testament. But, there's definitely some similarities there. But I had all of these very, concerns about my, well-being. Whereas when I got older, it's very much more straightforward. It's things that unnerve and upset me and that I think could actually happen. Or even if they're higher concepts. So I love folk horror, ironically, so much, and other things that have terrified me in recent years. Host, It Follows, The Vigil was amazing. But then there are non-horror movies that have elements that just terrify me. Beanpole, which came out last year. It's an amazing film with really wonderful queer elements, beautifully shot. But there are just some really, really upsetting portions of that film that it's not a horror movie. It's very much a drama, but there are things that are in that film that terrify me as an adult. Shiva Baby, great film that came out. Also very Jewish, but that's probably the most anxiety I've had in a movie in years. Like that is
can't, it was like a horror. It was like watching a horror movie though. Like it feels like that because of the anxiety and the tension that is just ramping up that entire film. Like it is like I feel like I'm gonna vomit. It's just too much. But it's also so fucking good though. Like that movie's amazing.
I own it. I haven't watched it yet. I need to get on that.
Oh, and it's gay. It's so beautifully gay.
Yeah, I adore that film. It's definitely one of my favorites of this year. But when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this is a panic attack. I'm like, everyone that described how Uncut Gems affected them, I'm like, Shiva Baby is my Uncut Gems. Like, I am just like, my palms are sweating. I don't know. This is not okay. And I loved it.
When Shiva Baby feels like so much more realistic to me. Like I feel like I grew up Catholic, but I feel like I've been to similar parties where it's like everyone is badgering you and everyone's asking you questions, and that anxiety alone is just like the most like I cannot. I'm gonna pass out. This is like every family party I went to growing up. So it's just like, no, that's okay. I don't need to be exposed to that ever again.
Wow. Yeah, I need to watch it.
It's so worth your time. I mean, other films, growing up, I just loved all of those Gremlins, Critters, Munchies, Troll, all of those kind of hobgoblins, ghouls, and ghoulies. That entire kind of collection of small creatures that ruin your life really, really were great. But now I watch them and it's just for enjoyment purposes. When I watch something that is like the Strangers, where anything can happen. It can be grounded in the reality of its film. It Follows was terrifying because it was so grounded in its own reality. And anything and anyone could be anything. And it's definitely a lot of J-horror really affected me as I grew up. I grew up in the suburbs of Philadelphia. It was the end of the line of a train station. So as soon as I was old enough to read the train schedule, I was like 12, 13, started sneaking down to the city. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening. And I would go down, and when you get out at Jefferson Station in Philadelphia, you go south, the city's there. It's bustling, it's amazing, it's great. But you go north, you're in Chinatown. And my stupid little can't read a map brain was like, Philadelphia is Chinatown. So I would take the train down and never leave Chinatown because they had just so many amazing foods and snacks and plum wine that they would serve to you as a child. And they had this laundromat that had clamshell subtitled VHS tapes. And that's where I got my copies of Ringu and Battle Royale and Dark Water and Suicide Club and so many great films that really have lingered with me into my adulthood because of the themes and the elements that really were character based. So for me, horror is about character, and that's what draws me in. And the other thing about horror that's so great, the community. I love being a horror fan because I get to interact with amazing people like you both.
Aww.
And then there's just so many other wonderful people that are out there that are just so passionate. Like there just, are plenty of Wayfair horror fans, but so many people that just love this genre and want to talk about it. And I love that.
So I have to ask, going into kind of your career, the one that jumps out at me that surprised me every time I see it is you being an ADR director for Funimation Entertainment. How did that come to be?
Well, I slept with the right person. It's funny because it's true. Sorry, Mom.
That's going to be the title of this episode. Sorry, Justin's mom.
Sorry, Justin's mom. But in all honesty, I was with my friends down in Baltimore. This is sometime in the mid-early aughts, and I was down there and met a gentleman named Chris. We had a whirlwind weekend fling, and it was so much fun, and he was wonderful, and he was a voice actor, and he lived down in Houston, so I would then go down and visit him, and we kind of tried doing a little long-distance thing, and spoiler alert, didn't work out, but we are still friends to this day, and he was doing a lot of voices for a number of different anime and video games at the time, and he is probably best known for playing Greed in Full Metal Alchemist, and Sosuke in Full Metal Panic, and a number of other great and wonderful classic shows, and tons of video games and other stuff. So while he and I were together, I met some of his friends and colleagues, one of whom is my friend Monica. And Monica is best known for being one of the American voices of Hello Kitty. Like for a while there, when you squeezed a Hello Kitty, it would be Monica's voice, and she did the Hello Kitty cartoon and the Hello Kitty claymation, and she's currently the voice of Froppy on My Hero Academia.
No fucking way! Sorry.
Right? I know.
Froppy is my favorite character. So I'm I love Froppy. I love you, Monica.
It's such a great character. Monica is one of my favorite human beings on the face of this planet. And Monica, when Chris and I broke up, Monica was like, Chris, I love you, but you're crazy. I'm keeping Justin in the divorce. And so Monica and I stayed pretty good friends. And then Monica started as an ADR director at Funimation Entertainment. And I came down to visit her. And when I was down visiting her and hanging out, she threw me in the booth. And for the first time, I got to do some voice acting. I did some background characters on this show called Shuffle, which is about demon girls that are trying to work through their trauma.
Fuck yeah, I want to watch that show.
That show is awesome. I also got to do a show called Shin-Chan, which was on Late Night Cartoon Network, and it was so foul and filthy that it did not continue on Late Night Cartoon Network.
Oh my God.
I will never forget. The first line that I ever got to say when I got put in that booth was, "That's the mouth hooker that gave me gonorrhea." So that was a sample of some of the wonderful things that they had on that show. But I got to do that, which was super cool and fun. I go back, I'm going about my life. And then an opportunity presents itself at Funimation. So I just decided to leave the education world behind that I was currently working in. I was working doing education publishing. I wrote middle school social studies and English curriculum.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know. So much fun, right? And then went down to Funimation and shadowed a really great director, Joel. And then after a little bit of time, they let me cut my teeth, and I did a show called Spice and Wolf, which is essentially Oregon Trail, but with a wolf goddess. It's literally like two amazing humans go on this journey through medieval Europe, selling things, bartering, so on and so forth. And I was like, this is a lovely show. I have no idea who's going to watch it. And then it was this huge hit. It got a second season. There's a VR game of it for the Oculus now. Like, it is just this wonderful, wonderful series that I had the pleasure of having it be my first show. And then after that, I got to do a number of different things. I directed a show called Sergeant Frog, which was essentially Pinky and the Brain with alien frogs. It was just these 5 frogs that came to take over the world, and they suck at it. And that one was so much fun because I got to do some writing and rewriting work on it, just to make sure all of the jokes hit. And it was very fun because we didn't know if the show was going to be TVPG or TVMA.
Oh no.
So we would do one take where the joke would be about snow and another take where the joke would be about cocaine. And we'd do one joke where it would be about a scarecrow and one joke where it would be about Michael Jackson molesting children. And we were like, surely they will pick one. And then the show was released as TVPG. And some of my cocaine and Michael Jackson and Corey Haim jokes all made it in.
Oh.
Oops.
Wow.
But so much fun. It was truly like a dream come true, getting to every day go to work, lock myself in a tiny, tiny space with absolutely eccentric and wonderful humans, and just take these wonderful shows and properties from Japan and put English dialogue on them. And it's a really, really interesting process on kind of how all of that works, because a lot of people get really angry that it's different from the dub. And as somebody that then got to be a writer, you know, the Japanese word for I, as in I am talking to Terry and Mary Beth, is watashi. That is 3 bloody syllables. How the fuck am I going to be faithful to what you're saying and fill 3 flaps with I? No, you have to adapt it so that it fits, and you don't get the old Speed Racer thing where the mouth keeps moving.
Yeah.
So it was my favorite aspect of the job, was trying to fit the flaps.
That's so fucking cool.
It's a very interesting way to write, because you're writing to animation that already exists. You have a story that you have to tell, but you can absolutely embellish or put in character flourishes or go back to the source material. A lot of things were based off of video games or comic books or manga, and go and check out what the different things are and try to insert that in different ways into the material. So sometimes people would be really excited and love some of the things we did. Sometimes there would be people who would be like, this is terrible, you changed the meaning of the something. And I was like, I'm sorry, I was told to make it funny, so cocaine.
You know, casual.
As you do.
As you do.
You also were involved with the Philadelphia Film Festival before you became involved with the Philadelphia Folksong Society and the Philadelphia Folk Festival. That's a lot of festivals.
I love a good festival, Terry. But for me, when I left Funimation, and it was basically what happened was I got on the writing team, and I got to first show that I worked on was called World Destruction, and that was based on like a Nintendo DS game, and it was talking animals and the apocalypse and all sorts of fun stuff. And I got to write this show, and it was so much fun, and I was really, really homesick. I was living, the studio for Funimation's Dallas-Fort Worth. I'm from, say it with me, people, Philadelphia. And so I was getting really homesick for Philly. And so I asked if I could write from anywhere. And they're like, sure, we've got people in LA and Austin. And I'm like, Philadelphia? And they said, sure, that's fine. So I got to go on the writing team. When you're working from home, as we've all found out over the last year, things can get a little stir crazy. And when you're just doing script writing, you kind of bang out your episodes pretty quickly. And then I would only get stuff every month. So there was definitely time where I'd be like, So I ended up doing some freelance arts marketing, because I am, as I said earlier, culturally promiscuous. And I started doing some work with the Pennsylvania Ballet in Philly, which is an amazing company. And the Pennsylvania Ballet dancers were actually all of the background dancers in Black Swan, which was really, really a wonderful opportunity for them. And I knew this, and Black Swan, of course, had its North American premiere at TIFF. But I knew some people at the Philadelphia Film Festival and said, hey, I'm with the ballet. I think we could do a really great connection. And so for the Philadelphia Film Festival, we actually had the North North American premiere of Black Swan with the ballet dancers who were the backup dancers in the film. And we were able to have Darren Aronofsky come down and just had an amazing time. And I always loved film, so I kind of used that as my foot in the door and continued to stay in touch and to continue to do some stuff with them. And then when the opportunity came to jump ship from the ballet and go to the film festival, I absolutely welcomed the chance, because the Philadelphia Film Festival was growing up where I saw Tale of Two Sisters for the first time, and The Descent in a full packed house audience. Just like horror memories that you cannot get anywhere else. And it was just something that it had such a great part of my film awareness and upbringing that I wanted to be a part of that. So when I joined their staff, I then got to work with them to help do everything from solicit for films to come and join the roster and be on the jury and review and look at all sorts of great shorts and stuff that were coming in. Worked with our membership base, helped coordinate a ton of stuff and getting the prints all over the city, because Philadelphia, she cute, but she's wide.
She's wide. She's very wide.
She thick. So we had to get prints from one end of the city to the other, and all sorts of fun stuff. We had the Alex de la Iglesia film, The Last Circus, and that's an amazing film. However, they sent us a digital copy of the film that would only unlock at the time that the film started. However, they did it for the Spain time zone, not the American time zone. So, all sorts of fun things that happen during a film festival. So I'm up there in front of the audience vamping and being like, how about that Perdita Durango, huh? Which is another amazing Alex de Iglesia film that I highly, highly, highly recommend. But working with a film festival was such a joy. And then, as it went on, this may not be the case for other people, it sucked a lot of the joy out of film. Because when you are working with amazing actors and directors and getting to watch films constantly, it sort of becomes for work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. Mm-hmm. I feel that way sometimes with you being writers and podcasters. I feel like that sometimes, where it's like, movies are work now.
Mm-hmm. And, because I loved film so much, it was really difficult to, have something that I loved become a little bit of a burden, and something that I had to do. So the longer I was there, I started kind of dabbling with some other stuff. I had the director of a law firm offer me a job, and I was her director of business development, and I hopped ship from film, and then I was there for a little bit and went, oh no, I hate for-profits. No offense to anyone that works in a for-profit day job, but I eventually found myself at the Philadelphia Folksong Society and the Philadelphia Folk Festival.
Cool. Wow. Dang, what a cool career.
Thank you. The difference between music festivals and film festivals to me is night and day. And I love film festivals. I will attend every film festival, but it's so passive. Whereas when it comes to music, it's all about that instant gratification. And so because of that, I really kind of found myself enjoying working with musicians more. And sometimes I've gotten to have the overlap. There's plenty of amazing musicians that are also actors and vice versa. Jeff Daniels came and played my festival from Arachnophobia, Dumb and Dumber, The Newsroom. He's an incredible blues guitar player. Very few people know that. Yes.
I did not know that.
Ridiculously talented.
Wow.
9 albums to his name.
Wow.
Holy shit.
Wow.
And the reason that Jeff knew about our festival is that Johnny Gallagher Jr., who you may know from Underwater, he was also Belko Experiment. He won the Tony for Spring Awakening on Broadway. Johnny grew up going to the Philadelphia Folk Festival. And when he was on The Newsroom with Jeff Daniels, in between takes, they would jam in their trailers. And he was like, oh man, you've got to play Philly. It's such a great time, so on and so forth. So when we booked Jeff, I made sure that Johnny would be able to be there. And we surprised Johnny at Jeff's show, and they ended up just jamming like they used to do on The Newsroom for
so cool.
On an hour on stage, which was pretty darn wonderful.
That's so fucking cool.
That's awesome.
Wow.
That's awesome.
I actually grew up going to the Philadelphia Folk Festival as well. So that's where my love of folk music came from. My parents actually met at the Philadelphia Folk Festival. I went to my first one at 4 months old, and I am currently 35, so this will be my 36th festival this year because I will be 36 and 4 months, or 35 and 4 months when the festival happens this year. My mother actually met all 4 of her husbands at the Philadelphia Folk Festival. So if you are single, ladies, it is a happy hunting ground. Sorry, Justin's mom.
That was kind of a mic drop moment right there.
I feel like we can't keep, like, we gotta end on that note. Like, all right, no more Tremors, just talking about Justin's mom meeting all 4. Wow, that's amazing. Your mom sounds cool.
My mom is super cool. It was interesting because she wasn't a big fan of horror things, but she knew that I was, and so, she would tell me we were going to Kmart, but surprise, Batman Returns, which was great, although I think I really wanted to go to Kmart that day, so I was a little upset at first, but then there was popcorn and Michelle Pfeiffer. Right.
Now that we've talked about your amazing career and your cool-ass mom, Justin, what movie are we talking about today?
We are talking about Tremors.
Tremors! Okay, y'all, so in Tremors, the natives of a small, isolated town defend themselves against strange underground creatures which are killing them one by one.
Bum, bum, bum.
That's it!
So, Justin, take us back. Tell us your horror story. When did you see this film? How did you see this film? What about it scared you? Go.
So I was 6 years old, and I was just one of those VHS covers that you saw, and it was so eye-grabbing because what? Hashtag cover slut. It was Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward and the female lead who were up there, and just this giant subterranean worm thing that was going to swallow them whole. And I had seen Beetlejuice. I knew what subterranean worms were. I could totally handle this. Also, it was PG, and by it was PG, I mean I held my finger over the 13 when I showed it to my parent and said, "Hi, Dad, can we please watch this? It has Reba McEntire. It couldn't possibly be bad."
Oh, that is a great trick.
So we bring home Tremors, and I think I've got this in the bag. We had watched Martin Scorsese's Cape Fear recently, which is great for a 6-year-old. But that was
what?
Did you even know what was going on in that movie when you
Not
were
at
6?
all.
I was like, you're 6, you got no fucking idea what's going on in that movie. Just
I will say, in Cape Fear, that was probably the first time as a child that I saw that bad things can happen to good people, and that definitely resonated with me as a child. And I saw pools of blood and all of those things, and I handled it. I was good. I could follow, Cape Fear. Although it definitely terrified me of Robert De Niro's Sidebar. Did you ever have an actor growing up that because they had a role, they scared you?
fuck, who was that for me?
My sister's was Gary Sinise, because he played this military veteran pedophile in Jack the Bear with Danny DeVito. And my sister, whenever she saw him, thought he was this crazy pedophile that was going to kill everyone in the movie. And so it had to be turned off. Spoiler alert, Gary Sinise is bad in 90% of the movies he's in.
That'd be fair. Okay, so you thought you could handle this movie.
Yes, totally have it. And so we go home and we pop it in. And the way that the house was laid out, I sat on our couch in the basement. And so it was kind of the lower part of the home. And so I'm sitting there with my dad and watching Tremors. Underground. And it was definitely the first thing that really freaked me out was our friend Farmer Fred, who was just trying to tend to his flock. And when Farmer Fred is kind of eaten by this unknown thing, he gives this blood-curdling scream. His eyes bulge out of his head, and all that's left is that tan hat.
The tan hat.
My dad had that same hat. So I was like, oh my God, whatever these things are, eat dads with tan hats. This is terrifying. I was so scared by this, and then it just kept going. And then we have these two wonderful people that are this doctor and his wife who are building their own house, and then they hear all of these rumblings, and then they one of them gets eaten immediately. The other one climbs into her car, which should be safe. I'm in a safe space. A car. When I'm in a car, I wear a seatbelt. That lets me know I'm safe. She climbs in, and the entire car gets eaten. Like, my 6-year-old brain was absolutely blown away. Nowhere was safe, which we see later in Chang's Grocery Mart. But the thing that absolutely fucked me up was when we had our two lead lovers, heroes, who went out into the wild blue yonder on a pair of horses, and then the horses get attacked and one of them gets eaten, and Val and Earl just have to stand there and watch as we see the creature for the first time, and it's eating a horse. What I haven't mentioned yet is that until I was 8, I grew up on a horse farm, and so we had horses. Not only did we have horses, but my one horse Apache looked exactly like the one that gets eaten, not the one that gets away and rides off into the sunset, the one that gets eaten, Mary Beth. So I was just completely devastated.
Like, run outside. Apache, are you okay? Like, sprinting outside.
Why would I do that, Mary Beth? They would be able to feel my movements.
That's true. That's true. I'm sorry. They would be able to. Then you're frozen. There's nothing you can do. Just you're sitting there in fear. You can't go outside.
100%. And as the movie went on and then they started attacking from under the store, my feet went up on the couch because obviously we're in a basement. They're going to come through. And then they get into Reba McEntire and Bert's basement, Heather and Bert's basement, and an attack in there. So obviously we are not safe. It is the first time as a child I felt not safe. I felt like anything could really happen to me and that I could have been victimized or that I could have been hurt or the things that I love and held dear could have been hurt. And that terrified me so much that the next time I had to go outside, I took the cushions off of my mother's patio furniture and essentially played The Floor is Lava with my entire backyard and horse farm, because obviously if my feet touched the ground, the graboids would hear me and get me. So I was taking cushions, putting them down, stepping on them, picking them up and putting them down with not a single amount of irony. I was fully convinced this was the only way that I could make sure everyone was safe. And what did I do? I made a beeline for Apache and the other horses, and I padlocked them in. And would not let them go out for days. Would not let the dog out. The dog pooped in the house because I would not let the dog out because the graboids were going to get it. My dad worked construction. We had like boards around. I was using the boards to create an elaborate path that I would walk to go to the swing set. Because, 6-year-old brain, obviously when I'm on the swing set, I'm swinging and I'm not touching the ground. That's safe. But this was days of me not wanting to get in the car, not wanting me to go anywhere, not wanting my parents to leave the house. When my father went to go leave for work the next morning, I was crying. I made him walk on the boards to go to the car, and then I stood there at the front window to make sure that he made it out of the driveway okay.
How long did this go on?
Yeah. Days. Much to my parents' chagrin. It was days. It wasn't until my parents took and opened up one of my dinosaur books and showed me that obviously Tremors weren't anywhere in any of these books, and so and we looked at the different books of animals and things, and they were showing me that they were not real. They were not real. But that's how great the practical effects were. That as a small child, everything looked like it was totally in the realm of possibility and reality. And that these things were out there. And we had a big kind of hill on our property. And for me, that hill was just a sleeping graboid. It was under there, and that's why that hill was there. And obviously it was going to come out and it was going to kill my entire family.
So you hit on a lot of plot points that I definitely want to come back to, but I have to share my childhood story about this film, because you and I could not be different in regards to this film, because none of this scared me. I must have seen it. It came out in when? 1990?
89, 90.
And I'm fairly certain I saw this in the theater. I have memories of seeing it in the theater. My memories are a little bit hazy, but so I would have been like 9 or 10 when I saw this film. And so I was more entranced with like the special effects. But also I mentioned this on the podcast before. I kept like a running tally in my mind. I had a very active imagination too, but in my mind, as long as I knew what could kill monsters or like what I could do to stay away from them, like I got like a running list of tallies on how to kill Freddy, whether it was turning your back on him, whether it was giving him a kiss, whether it was like, all of these things like holy water, all of these things. I like had this list of things that I could do to protect myself. And the same way was with this. I wanted an elephant gun. I wanted a cat. I wanted these things to protect myself and my friends from these things that obviously were real and lived under the ground. We just hadn't seen them because, as they say in the movie, this is unprecedented. Why have we've never seen any fossil records of these? So like in my mind, I was like, these can happen at any time. I would jump from rocks to rock, like in practice, because I was like, I'm going to be ready for this. And in fact, I almost lost my eye because of this movie.
What the fuck?
So
Terry, you have great eyes, so I'm very mad at you.
Listeners, I've never heard this fucking story, so I'm ready.
This is another one of the movies I've been waiting for. And it was like a memory that came to me as I was watching, because I got the 4K edition when it came out, like in October or whatever. So like I sat down and I watched it, and it all came flooding back to me about like this memory of when I grew up in Alaska, and from like the first eight-ish years of my life. And we didn't live in Anchorage. We lived in a city or a town outside of Anchorage, and our neighborhood was relatively new. So there was a lot of foundations in the neighborhood, and there's a lot of empty things with big rusty poles and spikes and stuff that people were building. And I had no friends because, again, we were like one of the first neighbors on the street, and I'm introverted, and I didn't realize I was getting different from other people. So there's like a lot of that kind of stuff going on. So I played by myself a lot. And I remember seeing this movie, and then there was this foundation like 3 doors down from us, and I was playing around it because it was like the perfect thing. It was like underground. There was like rocks, and there was like big giant poles and stuff. And I remember playing around the edge of it and pretending I was being chased like Kevin Bacon at the very end of this movie, where the thing lunges and goes flying over the cliff, and I jumped to the side, missed my footing, fell down, and hit a pole like right in my cheekbone. I hit like this metal pole that was sticking out like an inch from my eye.
Did it go in your face?
No, it just like it hit it, and like it bruised. I got like really gnarly bruise down there. But no, but yeah, I was like,
it's like
about an inch away from it poking my eye.
I was waiting for the punchline that you like had a glass eye and
oh my god, what if Terry popped out his fucking eye? I would have fucking I would be deceased. I'd be like, I have left my body. I have ascended.
A long con just for this movie.
I knew somebody growing up that had a glass eye because their mother had got home from work and thrown the shoes, and the heel went into his eye, and he lost his eye, and he had a glass eye, and we used to play with it all the time. It was like, terrifying. Sorry, sidebar.
Wait.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Do the math on that. The chances of that angle perfectly puncturing your child's eye.
Probably the same amount of mathematical equations of probabilities that I didn't pick up mine falling down in the foundation. Like, Jesus Christ. I should have, we've talked many times in this podcast. I should not be here today because there are so many times I was parading through the wilderness of Alaska by myself as an 8-year-old, not really knowing I could be dead in a minute.
You're fine.
Terry, I was the exact same. And, the wilds of Pennsylvania, but still, I did this thing like I would be pissed at my parents. I would take a pillowcase. I would fill it with my favorite books and snacks and whatever. And I would take Wembley, and we would be running away from home. And there were multiple times where I would successfully find an abandoned house and stay in it overnight. Or we'd play in this old well. And
an old well.
Darwinism should have taken me long ago. Terry, you and I are here by the grace of Alanis Morissette, the Almighty Lord.
Hey, I will pray on the altar of Morissette any day.
Wow. I don't have a good story about this movie. I watched it a couple months ago for the first time.
Oh, yay.
And
But I loved
what were your
it.
thoughts?
I loved it. It was so fun. It was like another one of those movies where I was like, it's probably not like that creepy. And like I wasn't scared, but it was tense, and it was a lot more intense than I expected. Like I don't think I really thought about how scary it is to like nothing is safe. Like you can't even go in a house. Like all the safe spaces of horror are completely obliterated, like literally obliterated. And I think that was a really terrifying thought of like, oh, what happens when there is nowhere safe to go? And like, you know, the scene especially that always sticks out is when Val, Earl, and what's her name?
Rhonda.
They're on the rocks and they're stranded on the rocks. And it's like, fuck, like, what do we do? How do we get out of here? And that kind of like more existentially fear paired with the monster, like really was much more terrifying than I expected when I was watching this film. And I was like, also Reba McEntire and her husband in this movie, like their whole sequence with their house and the shooting is just very good. So,
it's so good.
It's a great fucking movie.
Well, you know,
It's so much fun.
I think the reason why this movie might be a little bit unassuming or might disarm you is that it starts off with the kind of, I'm going to call it a romantic comedy between Earl and Val of them waking up, and it's like, you know, jokey over like, well, who's cooking today? Are you cooking honey or am I cooking honey? And they have to do like, I can imagine a couple doing like rock, paper, scissors to figure out who's cooking for the day. They're sleeping in the back of the truck. You know, it's like, it's funny, it's jokey. And then it starts to like slowly unspool the mystery of what's really going on. You know, there's the seismographs are showing crazy activity, and then they find Edgar, who's dead up in the pole, and it's not dead because he had a heart attack or whatever. He's dehydrated, so he died over a course of like 3 or 4 days. Like there's all of these, and that moment, that face that shot up on his face, I remember freaking me out as a kid, just because it's like he looks so burnt and mangled, and it probably doesn't hold up as much in 4K as it did back on like a crappy beta or VHS tape, you know, cover. But like that moment, and then it kind of goes from there and just slowly unspools the mystery bit by bit.
Yeah, and that also the thought of dying by dehydration is probably
horrifying.
Horrifying prospect, like that man. And I think that's what got to me from the whole thing is like you're stuck in one place and you know what you need to survive, but there's no way to get it, so you're just like. And he have, you know, this like, oh, do you kill yourself? Like, do you fall and let it happen? Do you see if you hold out and you're like holding out hope and then you literally like shrivel up basically?
Someone has to come by. Like
exactly. And it's just, it's much more like deeply scary the more you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. And again, as a child, a lot of existential dread. But did either of you ever see the deleted scene of the original opening with Edgar? Because had that been in the movie, I would have probably not made it past that opening scene.
No.
So the original opening of the film, which was actually filmed, and it is an extra on the Arrow 4K set, Terry, for you to check out. And anybody else. It's Edgar is actually the first victim, and he goes home and he takes his horse and he puts his horse away in the barn. And then all of a sudden he hears this noise and the rattling, and what happens? But it's a graboid eating his horse, but they don't show it. It's just all the horse screaming in terror and the barn shaking and him like kind of seeing all of the dust and things kicked up. And then he starts running, and that's when he ends up going up the pole to go get to safety. And then it was supposed to cut to the title. And there's, you know, more to it. But had I opened up with dead horse in the first 3 to 4 minutes, I would not have made it to Kevin Bacon peeing in the wind off of a cliff, which is seconds later. What an opening, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah,
beautiful
Terry,
shot though.
Oh, I know. It's gorgeous. The escape is amazing. But I agree with you, Terry. There's a lot of queer coding in this film when it comes to the two main characters. I think Val and Earl are very much kind of that bickering married couple. Even when they're describing kind of the perfect women, it's very much, in large brush strokes. And he's looking at a picture of a woman and describing her rather than what it is.
And it's an unattainable list. It's like she has to have these characteristics. And it's like, if I make a person that is so impossible, then that just allows me to stay more with you, Daddy Earl. Like
Earl.
This is his mind. This is his way of being able to stay with him and not have to commit to a woman, is the fact that he has a list of unattainable characteristics. Has to be, blonde, has to be this, has to be that. Like this his idea of perfection, Nevada. But one of the things that I picked up this time and I wrote in giant letters is that a woman literally arrives in town the same time as the Tremors. The Tremors is a subtext for unrest in Earl and Val's relationship. This whole movie is predicated on the fact that a woman is potentially splitting up their marriage.
Because if they'd only left town the day before,
they would be getting their maid in Bixby and living together a very happy queer life. But no. They had to wait, and now there's Tremors and a woman causing trouble.
Well, and Rhonda as kind of a female lead is just such an interesting character because, we are introduced to her with the suntan lotion on her nose, which is supposed to make her so woefully unattractive. And, what type of scientist are you? So obviously it's a woman with brains, so that could never be attractive to anyone, let alone these manly men like Val and Earl.
Right. Well, and also they constantly are kind of ignoring her. I love, Mary Beth, you were talking about the being stuck on the rock moment. And I love that they're trying to come up with a plan to go ahead, and they're completely ignoring the fact that she has already have it solved. She already has the whole situation solved with the pole vaulting. And she's like, hey, guys, I got an idea. And everyone's like, oh, well, we just got to come up with a plan. We got to come up with a plan. They're not used to having another person in their relationship offering advice, that they're completely ignoring this woman and her perfectly wonderful plan to escape.
It's total bickering married couple.
Oh, absolutely.
100%.
The lengths that they go to as the film goes on to save each other, to be there for each other. Scissors, rock, paper, who has to do it? Well, I won. No, I'm going to do it. No, shove you out of the way now. Kevin Bacon's running through the dirt to save Earl's life. I mean,
save his daddy.
Exactly. And then Earl's the one that comes up with the idea that saves Kevin, that saves Val. And so it's definitely this amazing relationship that these two men have, regardless of what it may be on screen or off. But this relationship that these two have is what helps not only them, but most of the town survive. Except for poor, stupid Nestor. Why would you get onto a tire?
Oh.
Even as a 6-year-old, I was like, and in he goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6-year-old, the tire's no good, but your little cushions are okay.
And you want to know why? Because they don't have holes in them, Terry. Duh. Boards, cushions, no holes. Graboids could obviously not. But a tire, big ol' hole.
It's a very good point.
Okay.
That's a very, very good point.
That.
Exactly. You
Also, I finally got to say big ol' hole on Scarred for Life. It's just like full achieved.
Big ol' hole. Can you talk about the Graboids design? I mean, you already mentioned phallic, giant penis creatures just booping around,
Absolutely, they are this they are this personification of masculinity that is very, very, very phallic, and they are going through the dirt and penetrating this town and these people and affecting their lives in ways that they didn't want or need again and again. And it's definitely something that there's definitely undercurrents there. Even the original designs of the Graboids apparently had a foreskin to them.
I was gonna say, I could kind of when you were talking about phallic, I was like, well, I mean, you could kind of make a leap that the way the mouth unfurls, it's a little.
I mean, the kind of tongue tentacle-y things themselves are rather phallic, but apparently the original design of the Graboids had an exoskeleton that retracted, and a lot of the female members of the production team went, no. As a nice Jewish boy, I would not have understood at the age of 6. However, it definitely would have been a weird little horror sexual awakening,
Boy.
seeing all these weird penis monsters.
That would have been a sight to see, I have to say.
I definitely also thought, because I hadn't seen Tremors, I thought that the graboids and the Sarlacc from Star Wars were the same thing.
There's a lot of...
I cannot explain to you how I somehow thought these movies from two very different universes were the same thing. But here we are.
I mean, I feel like I probably had a similar thought, because now that I'm thinking about it, man, the 80s had like a lot of worms. I mean, we had
A lot of worms.
we had Return of the Jedi. We had this. We had Beetlejuice. I don't remember what year Beetlejuice came out, but we had Beetlejuice, and we had Dune. Like,
Oh yeah, dude.
all of these movies coming out in like that decade-ish time frame, and there's a lot of really gnarly worms going on.
And it's
back the
interesting
worm.
because the whole concept behind this was land shark. That these were, and that was the original working title. And these were supposed to do for the land what Jaws did for the sea. And to poor little 6-year-old me, it did. But when you think about it, this is also just top tier daylight horror.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Right? The entire thing takes place during the day. And we have no respite from it other than going into the basement of Bert and Heather, which even there, you're not safe. And you bringing up the design and the practical effects, Mary Beth, that sequence is incredible. And how they filmed it with miniatures, but did full takes cutting back and forth. But between the two, the effects for the time were really spectacular.
That scene was my favorite growing up as a kid, especially with them just unloading all of their guns on it, and anything they can grab, they're just boom, boom, boom. And that was where I was like, I need to get myself an elephant gun. 10-year-old me had to have I don't like guns, but 10-year-old me had to have an elephant gun, because that was the thing that could stop them. You shoot him in the mouth and, yeah, okay, probably the other bullets probably helped weaken him down before that one. But in my mind, it's like, no, 2 shots from that elephant gun and these graboids are gone.
100%. I flat out asked my dad if we had a gun. We didn't, but I knew where my dad kept his machete. So I may or may not have pulled that out at one point and then had a stern talking to coupled with a wooden spoon. However, you don't touch people's machetes without asking unless your name is Jason. Learned that at an early age. But it's definitely one of those things that it's interesting, because in this, it throws back to a lot of those really old, great classic monster movies where you defend yourself with whatever you have around. Kind of like Them, and tarantulas and other things where, there were just these creatures and you just grabbed whatever you could. So for me, knowing that it was sound and these different things that we could use to distract them, I fully took bags of, I think they were egg noodles, and I would shake them and throw them so that the graboids would go that way and away from wherever I was. My poor mother, I can't even imagine going out and seeing her cushions ruined, food strewn across the lawn, the horses locked up and not able to go out, the dog shit on the floor, and all because 6-year-old Justin got a little scared.
I love that though. But okay, so creature features, you mentioned earlier that this was doing for land what Jaws did for water. When I'm watching this film, I see a lot of callbacks to Jaws. From particular, there's the way that there's a lot of not showing the monster and kind of slow unveiling of the monster, where first we see, just the little eel. First, we don't see anything. It's just something, the ground's moving. And then we see like the little eel coming out, and it's like, oh, there might be small ones. And then we see the giant size of it later. But then there are also a couple of the deaths, like in particular, poor Doctor, when he gets pulled down underneath and he's screaming, "Oh God, help me." It reminded me of the opening kill in Jaws. And then when Kevin Bacon is on the rock and he's tapping the ground with the stick, it reminds me of Brody chumming the water and not paying attention. And then there's the things coming out of there. There's just like a lot of those little moments that the way this is structured reminded me a whole lot of Jaws. And I think even the poster of like the giant eel thing coming up the ground is like a Jaws homage from the poster. And
100%, yeah.
There's just so many little tiny things there that I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing with this movie as an adult that I didn't notice as a kid.
Another thing I thought about, like, not about Jaws, like, I guess sort of about Jaws is like the male friendship angle. And like we talked about them being like lovers, but there also is this kind of like wanting to, it's almost like, oh, look at these two kind of rednecks, and like kind of that idea of masculinity and kind of breaking it down a little bit with their friendship and having that kind of really grow throughout the film is something I definitely appreciated when I watched it. I watched it as an adult, so that I thought a lot about that a lot more than probably I would as a kid. But I thought that was a really interesting aspect of the film as well.
I loved Earl and his kindness, I guess, in a lot of ways. Like, he does not seem the kind of he's first introduced as sort of the rough around the edges, you know, cowboy feature, but he's very kind, and he's very, even with Kevin we're with Valentine when he's poking him, Earl is does it at a place of like love, you can tell. And I love his catchphrase of like, pardon my French, where he's just constantly like spouting out a curse word, and they're like, oh, pardon my French, I gotta pull it back. Fred Ward does such a great job with this character.
Absolutely. And there's actually a wonderful feature, again, on the Arrow 4K where they have all of the made-for-TV dub-overs of the curse words that they do. And it's just a montage of all of the things that they have to say instead, because he got a potty mouth. My little 6-year-old virgin ears were on fire.
Well, and this movie originally was going to be rated R because of the language, and then they edited out a bunch of them, like they made it mother humper and all that kind of stuff, because it originally did get an R rating for F words, like I'm self-censoring. And them saying fuck all the time. Like
The F word.
The F word.
Oh no.
We don't say that word here.
No, we don't.
No, we don't say
no cursing here on this here podcast. Very much not.
Can we talk about Bert and Heather?
Yeah, I was about to say the characters are so wonderful and so well developed from minute one. You kind of know who they are, but then as the film goes on, they just get so much more lived in. And Bert and Heather in their relationship and how they trust and support one another as the film goes on. Their arsenal, the reason that you find out that they're living there so that they can be off the grid. They're just these incredible characters. And again, Reba McEntire, that was a big selling point for me to get this PG film home.
I love her.
I love her. And it was like, you know, I feel like I have such an image of Reba McEntire, and then seeing her in this movie, like just fucking gun-toting bad bitch behavior. I'm like, I would like more of this, please.
Right? Oh, I wish she had done the sequel. They had originally pitched for Reba McEntire and Kevin Bacon to come back. She had to do a tour, and Kevin Bacon made the worst decision of his career. He did this really wonderful movie that no one remembers called Apollo 13 instead of Tremors 2. But, you know, I could have done the entire franchise surrounded by Reba McEntire. And this was her first film role. Like, this was the first time that she had acted ever. And she is perfection.
I love it's such a small line, but every time I see this movie, I always think about it, where she yells magazine to Bert, and it seems like such a stupid thing, but she's like, I'm here, give me that ammo, I need it, I'm out. Like, it's such a shorthand conversation between the two of them that they know what they're doing, they're handling the situation. They've been kind of prepping for the situation, although I do think it's funny when Bert's like, you know, driving when they're driving away from the place, and he's like, where was it? I wrote this down because I love it. Oh, yeah. 1,000 gallons of gas, air filtration, water filtration, Geiger counter, bomb shelter, underground goddamn monsters. Like, I just love that, you know, he's prepping for doomsday. He's prepping for all this shit to happen. And at the end of the day, it's under the ground with them. I love that little inversion.
But again, like that I didn't think about, like the nihilism in this movie that, again, you probably don't really think about, but then you really like, oh shit, like this guy has spent his whole life prepping for everything, for every scenario, like was prepped. And then surprise, it comes from underneath you and you can't do shit to stop it, at least not with what you have. Like, that's fucking crazy.
And no one in that town is equipped. And also, can we talk about how diverse that town is for having a population of 10?
Yeah.
It's like
in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Right? We have this incredibly confident Latino man, Miguel. We've got, you know, this amazing entrepreneur, Walter Chang.
By the way, Jaws homage gets his Quint moment. He gets pulled in the mouth of the monster and pulled underground, just like Quint did in Jaws.
Oh my god,
Very
he
good
does. Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Oh, that again terrified me because, as Mary Beth said earlier, like, that's a safe space. You go in the house, you're good. It comes up through the floor. Like, whoa! It blew my little mind. And then you had single mom Nancy and little Mindy on her damn pogo stick.
Boing,
I
boing,
never,
boing, boing.
never used my pogo stick ever again. And that's not even a lie. I never touched it.
I never had one. I was too clumsy. I was not meant for that. I remember riding my bike down a hill and going flying off the handlebars of it in Alaska and scratching up side of my face. Like, I just was not, pogo stick was not in my cards.
I was too scared of pogo sticks. I didn't like them. They scared me. Something about them was not good.
You just knew. You knew that a graboid. You were like,
off a bad aura.
I'm a bouncing meal.
I will stick to my skip it. Thank you very much.
I'm not fucking joking. That's exactly what I had. I had my skip it, and that was what I did instead of a pogo stick. I was so funny. I was going to be like, I just stuck with my fucking skip it, and it was great. No,
I again, I'm clumsy. No way.
Oh, that's why
almost died on a bicycle.
I feel like everyone has a story about when they almost died on a bicycle. It's like a rite of passage as a kid.
Yes, it is a rite of passage. But okay, I could three just immediately come to mind. The one where I decided to take my bike off of a skateboard ramp, going super slow, and I went whoop and thud and knocked the air out.
No.
Yeah, knocked the air out of me. The one time where I was racing someone down a hill and flew over the front of my bike and scraped my face up. Or another one where I panicked going down an S curve on like a hill and just went, oh fuck, and ran right into a wall. Like, again, should not be here today. So yeah, skip its, pogo sticks, all that kind of shit. Not for me as a kid.
Neither were elephant guns, apparently, so that's a relief. Because Darwinism really would have taken Terry had that been the
Quite
case.
Possibly.
I really hope. I'm picturing your father turning to you and saying, "I wouldn't give you a gun if this were World War III."
So I mean, like Bert and Melvin giving him the empty gun,
which was great.
I love that moment. By the way,
the gun's not loaded.
Bert, you asshole. Could you all live in perfection, Nevada?
Absolutely not.
No, not in the least. I need all of the amenities, and did not see a gay bar. Did not see any single gay men since Val and Earl are taken. And my rule of thumb is that if it's more than 5 subway stops, it's long distance dating. It will never work. So no, not.
Yeah.
Second question. Where do the graboids come from?
The pits of hell.
Okay.
I always thought in my, love of this film, they've never really explained it until you get to the later ones and they're genetically altered and blah, blah, blah craziness. But in the initial one, they never tell you. And I always just assumed we're out in the desert. They practiced nuclear warheads, and there were so many other films that were explained away that, there was some sort of nuclear incident in the radiation and this, that, and the other things. But it seems that they really just do come from Mother Nature. And as they get later in the films and there's a life cycle of the graboid. Have you seen any of the later films, Terry or Mary Beth?
That was going to be my last question, because I know I have seen the second one. I remember nothing about it except that I think that one has ass blasters in it.
Ooh.
Third one's ass blasters.
Ass blasters for the third one. Okay.
Yeah,
Shriekers.
The second one is the Shriekers, which are little tremors with legs that run around. The third one has...
Excuse me?
Once they get to a point where they can no longer survive as the graboids, they then give off these 3 sacks that have 3 little shrieker ones that run around and scream, and that can get you pretty much anywhere. And then the third one, they grow wings, and they call them ass blasters because they use essentially fire farts to blast off and get off the ground. This is a very serious franchise, Mary Beth.
Yeah, very much so. Well, now I have to watch them because I did not know ass blasters were a part of this franchise.
The third one, I will say, is super fun because they bring back everyone that survived the first one except for Kevin Bacon and Reba McEntire. So they really do get almost the entire cast back, and it's a lot of fun. And it's definitely probably the second best one in the group.
Fuck yeah.
But then they just keep going.
Until recently that there were 7.
There's 7?
There's
Yup.
7.
Oh, don't worry. Jamie Kennedy shows up in some of the later ones. Also, avoid Four at all costs. It's a prequel, and they have Burt Gummer's great-great-grandpappy.
Well, because he kind of takes over the series, right? Isn't he sort of like the one continuity between all 7 of them?
Yeah, he's in every single one of them, including this last one that went straight to Netflix with John, is it Hader, Napoleon Dynamite?
Oh, that's fucking right.
Yeah,
oh my
so
God.
That one's chilling on Netflix if you're really bored one night. It's not good. But I love that this little franchise that could, after this one movie, it did not do well in theaters, and then it just made so much money from little 6-year-olds lying to their family about what it's rated, and made so much money in VHS sales that they then had a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5 prequels. They go to Canada in one of them, and there's ice ones.
Oh, that's right. I saw the cover, I think, for the ice
Cold
ones.
Day in Hell.
Cold Day in Hell. Yep.
Dun dun dun. It's just one of those franchises that doesn't get the love because it just realized what it was real quick and just leaned so far into camp.
Love that. I need to watch them. I like I said, I know I've seen the second one, but I remember absolutely nothing about it except that I think Fred is back in it. And I think that's like literally the only thing I knew about it. But again, that was like a 6-year break between the original and that sequel.
Well, the thing is that they actually filmed it in 1994.
Oh,
and
did
they were not going to release it theatrically, but they did a test screening to see how it would do, and it did gangbusters. They loved it. The audience loved it so much, and the studio was like, oh, we didn't mean for that to happen. So then they sat on it for 2 years and then dumped it on VHS in 96.
Wow.
Huh.
Wow.
Wow.
Right. Studio interference, even getting you in the 90s.
Some things never change.
But I will say I had the privilege of getting to meet Kevin Bacon because he is also a musician with his brother, the Bacon Brothers. And when they came and played the Philadelphia Folk Festival, I got to drive them in a golf cart.
Ooh. Look
at you.
And because I had trapped him, I was able to tell him how much that I loved Tremors. And I had him sign my copy of Tremors. And I loved it so much. And then he got up on stage, played a set, and a drunk woman screamed at the top of her lungs, "I saw your dick in Hollow Man!" And Kevin Bacon just leaned forward into the mic and said, "Thank you."
On that beautiful note, do we want to give this movie a rating out of 5?
We absolutely do.
Thank you.
Uh,
All right, Terry. Sorry. How many, pardon my Frenches, out of 5 do you give Tremors?
no beating around the bush. This is a 4.5, maybe a 5. Pardon my Frenches. Out of 5 for me. This movie, it's hard to divorce the nostalgia from this one because it was one of my favorites growing up when I was a kid, and it did almost cost me an eye. So I have to absolutely love it because otherwise it was for naught. But no, I think it's a perfect mix of like that sort of horror comedy that straddles both. There's some horrifying moments. There's a lot of funny. There's a lot of heart in it. I think the practical effects are great. I love the cast. I was so glad to hear, Mary Beth, that you as an adult with no nostalgia attached to this also really enjoyed it. Because you start to, when you're doing this podcast and we're starting to look back on films that meant so much to you as a kid, there is that kind of rose-colored glasses. But I don't think this is one of those. I think this movie is fucking awesome. I love it so much. So, what the hell? 5. I'm giving it 5. Pardon my Frenches out of 5. What about you, Mary Beth?
I'm going to give a 4, pardon my Frenches, out of 5. This movie's phenomenal. It's so much fun. It's scarier than I expected. The effects are amazing, and so are the performances. I think I don't have the same nostalgia, so I don't see it as a 5 necessarily, but it's damn close. It's just such a fun film, and I'm glad that my fiance made me watch it, and I'm glad I get to talk about it again here because it really is, I think, a movie that I slept on and is an amazing creature feature that I know a lot of people talk about, but I think deserves even more love than I think it gets now.
Yeah.
Justin, you have the final word. How many, pardon my Frenches, out of 5 do you give Tremors? I think I know the answer.
Pardon my Frenches.
I am actually going to go with 4.5.
Okay.
Pardon mon français out of 5. And the reason is that it terrified the shit out of me, and I will hold it against it until the day I die, so it only gets 4.5. But it definitely was the birth of my love of practical effects that carried over into The Thing and so many other films thereafter. And I think Tremors' effects work still to this day holds up so well. The comedy holds up so well. The central romance between the two men holds up well, between Kevin Bacon and Finn Carter. Not so much. Which, sidebar, Finn Carter got arrested for grand theft larceny for stealing a bajillion people's credit cards and a car right before the pandemic.
Seriously?
Yes, I was like, where is she now? And I Googled and went, ooh, there's a mugshot. Oh, I felt so bad. But, this is a film that has such a great place in so many people's hearts, including Kevin Bacon's. He had his first kid while this was being filmed. He had to leave set on one of their final days of filming because Kira went into labor. So it's just one of those things that, this film means a lot to a lot of the people that made it. And to me, as somebody that just was terrorized by it in my dreams and nightmares and backyard and horse farm for so long, I love it. And I appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us to talk about Tremors. Where can listeners find you, and what do you have that you'd like to plug?
I can be found on Letterboxd and Twitter at @JNordell. I can be found on Peloton at Pelotoni Colette, which I really just wanted to say that.
I'm so mad I didn't think of that.
That's amazing.
And I can be found on Instagram at Mogwai47, Mogwai as in Gizmo, and 47 as in the number of times that I got stung when I stepped on a yellow jacket's nest. So that's my lucky number, because all the bad luck is out of that number. All the bad luck happened already. I totally got my girled, and now I don't have to worry about it anymore. So at Mogwai47 on Instagram. We have the 59.5 Philadelphia Folk Festival is going to be taking place this August, and it is going to be available online, so you can stream it from anywhere in the world, and that's going to be August 21st and 22nd. You can get more details at folkfest.org. We also have digital music classes that you can take from anywhere in the world as well, including everything from songwriting, guitar, ukulele, fiddle, and so many other things that even as the world is reopening, it's good to kind of hone your skills a little bit, and you can find out more about that at pfs.org. And if you don't mind me being able to plug, my little sister is opening up a comic and book store in Baltimore. So if you're in the DC metro area, she and Baltimore region, she is opening up Dreamers and Make Believers, which is a comic and book store that is going to be opening up in August. You can find out more at dreamersbooks.com. And the coolest thing is that she has this book basket that's going to be near the front called Gay It Forward, where it's going to have all sorts of LGBT books that are available free of charge. So no questions asked. If you or someone in your life needs a little something queer for whatever reason, being able to just go in and not have to have a receipt show up, or being able to take something and read it, I'm really, really proud of. And she's going to have tons and tons of horror comics as well, because she, of course, had to watch all of the things that I wanted to watch growing up, because that's how life works when you're siblings.
I love
That's amazing. So listeners, you've heard from us, but you want to hear from you. Well, what was your experience with Tremors? Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm at Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the children? Won't somebody please think of the children?
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the briefing room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th. We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.